The number of people dying from the coronavirus is falling fast, and yet the screw is tightening everywhere. In many countries, death totals from everything are lower than they usually are at this time of the year. You'd have to have your skull scooped out and filled with concrete not to realise that there's something really sinister and very evil going on. The fear being promoted with such enthusiasm is clearly nothing to do with a fairly ordinary virus, and everything to do with the ambitions of those who want a world government and total control over every aspect of our lives. Everywhere I look, I see evidence that attempts are still being made to push the fear and to terrify people. The testing program shows that more and more people have or have had the virus. Indeed, almost everyone who's tested seems to have a positive result. Actually, that isn't so surprising because it seems that some tests ping positive if you've had a cold or a flu vaccination sometime in the last decade. Probably shows positive if you've ever sneezed. Apparently, one test showed positive when tested on a goat, and the test was even positive when tried on a papaya fruit. Still, the test is proving very useful to those who want to destroy the country so that they can rebuild it the way the United Nations wants it to be, according to Agenda 21. And so, around the world, towns are being closed down and the citizens punished for absolutely no good reason at all. If anyone in government were interested in the science, they would know that lockdowns don't work. They were never going to work. They were always a terrible idea. They came from Ferguson, of course. The lockdowns and hospital closures just made things worse. They resulted in all the care home deaths, and they stopped people developing immunity. They made people depressed and unhealthy. They will result in millions of entirely unnecessary deaths around the world, and they're wrecking the economy. We're constantly being promised the vaccine as though it were the Holy Grail. My position on vaccination is very simple. I'm pro-truth, and I expect, or rather demand, that if I'm going to be given a vaccine or a drug, then it will have been properly tested beforehand and that the risk-benefit ratio will have been properly investigated. Sadly, the evidence shows clearly that the risks far outweigh the benefits. After years of observation, I'm convinced that there's one big difference between the people who are devoted to vaccination at all costs and those who are concerned about its safety and effectiveness. Most of those in the first group have never done any research at all, whereas most of those in the second group, the cautious doubters, have done a good deal of research, are alarmed by what they've seen, and know what they're talking about. Sad to say, many doctors know very little about vaccines and vaccination, except that it's a very profitable activity. The average GP can make many thousands of pounds a year by giving injections, though in practice, of course, she or he doesn't actually have to give the injections. A nurse or an assistant does that. And nurses, health visitors and so on know only the propaganda, I fear. How many know that the UK government has to pay out so much money to the parents of children damaged by some vaccines that they actually have a fixed fee of £120,000 per severely damaged child? In the United States, the government has paid out over $4 billion for vaccine injuries. That money has been paid on behalf of 18,000 individuals, and that's a lot of money for governments to pay out for treatments that are supposed to be perfectly safe. I bet you won't read that in the Daily Mail or the Guardian, or see it on the BBC. They have destroyed our education system with all the lockdowns and the social distancing, and a whole generation of children has been indoctrinated into fear. I predict huge mental health problems for 2 whole generations at the very least. And they have, as they planned to do, destroyed untold small businesses, leaving the way clear for the multinationals to control all our purchasing and push it online. There are still some innocent souls who believe that the economy will bounce back in a few months. Financial commentators blithely tell us that everything will be fine long before Christmas. Those dunderheads probably still believe in the tooth fairy, because they clearly have no idea how much damage has already been done. They have no idea how much damage is continuing to be done by the social distancing. They have no idea how businesses are run, I suspect. and they appear to have no idea that everything's being manipulated. Or maybe they're part of the plan to deceive and to manipulate, to oppress and to misinform. But somehow I doubt that. I think many of those who seem to be in charge are acting blind, and they're panicking and have no idea what's going on. Some are continuing with stale and stupid arguments because they're frightened to admit that they got it all wrong, that the whole coronavirus story has been wildly exaggerated. I'm convinced that many of the politicians in government have absolutely no idea what's going on, and I'm equally convinced that there are some advisors who don't know what's going on. On the other hand, there are some advisors who know exactly what's going on. I also suspect that a former Prime Minister, whom I won't name other than to say that his first name is Tony, his second name begins with a B, and he's widely known as Britain's most famous war criminal, knows a good many of the people who know exactly what's happening and knows about the role of the United Nations in it all. To be honest, if there's anyone in the world who trusts Blair, I slipped it out, they should be locked up for their safety and for ours. Our strings are being pulled by the people behind the United Nations, the World Health Organization, the Global Economic Forum and so on, and it's become clear that their agendas are no longer quite so hidden. Their plan to take over the world, to control our bodies and our minds, is clear in every conceivable way. I'm convinced that a small chunk of the rich and powerful people who planned this disaster are still organizing things so as to make our current lives as difficult as possible. They want to break us. They're using old psychological tricks to wear us down. If you haven't watched it, then please either watch my video on brainwashing or read the transcript on my website. The same people who were pulling the strings of the global warming nutters and hiding in the background are now controlling the demonstrations and the riots, the interracial conflict, and the attempts to eradicate our national histories. They're doing everything to destroy the world we know so that they can recreate things to their advantage. You'd have to be extremely naive not to realize that our world is being manipulated by some very evil people indeed. I'm fully aware that saying all this will ensure that the trolls will have a field day. Well, if they had the brains and the courage, I'd happily debate with them. Unfortunately, they don't have brains or courage, and I'm banned from all mainstream media anyway, because of my views on vaccinations and drug companies. While mentioning debate, let me just repeat my challenge to Dr. Whitty, the British government's chief medical officer. I will happily debate vaccination with Dr. Whitty live on national television or radio. This would give the establishment a chance to destroy publicly the fears that I have and that many share about the safety and effectiveness of vaccination. But Dr. Whitty won't debate, of course, and you can read into that whatever you like. There are, of course, many people who say there never was a virus and that all we're seeing is the usual standard flu. Certainly the infection rate and the death rates are similar to those of a fairly ordinary flu. Indeed, remove the care home deaths and this is a very mild flu attack. Sorry, I'm not allowed to say any of that, so I didn't say it. I don't know how to cut it out, so you'll have to pretend you didn't hear it. The fact is that I don't think any of that matters very much in practical terms. The only thing that matters at the moment is that a mild problem has been willfully exaggerated, fear has been created, and our lives have been totally disrupted. When we finally extricate ourselves from this mess, which we will, there will have to be a good many questions about who did what and why. I'd like to see Ferguson in court. His model was clearly as much a load of rubbish as others he's produced over the years. And I'd like to see in court the people who accepted Ferguson's predictions, apparently without submitting them to any sort of peer review. And I'd like to know how many people who've been giving advice have past or present links with the vaccine industry and its advocates. But our immediate need is to understand the tactics and strategies of the people behind the United Nations, the World Health Organization, and the other bad organizations. We need to know who they are, what they're trying to do, and precisely what they want. Let's not forget, we're fighting a war. And in a war, Information is the most vital commodity. This is, I think, a time to reread, among others, Machiavelli's The Prince, Sun Tzu's The Art of War, and the Emperor Napoleon's thoughts on strategy and tactics. I've dug out my copies of all three. Thank you for watching An Old Man in a Chair, and thank you for all your support and encouragement. Please copy and share the videos on Twitter, Facebook, BitChute, and anywhere else you like. Let's spread the truth. If you'd like to put on a translation, that's fine. If my videos disappear, then please go to my website, www.vernoncoleman.com, to read the transcripts of the videos. The banned videos are in transcript form on the website too. This channel hasn't been monetized, I haven't authorized any advertising, and there is no sponsorship. If you'd like to see more videos from me, please subscribe to the channel because the videos tend to disappear. If you visit mainstream media, please put on messages asking people to take a look at these videos on the YouTube channel. And remember, although it may feel strange and frightening at times, you're not alone. People are waking up, and we will win this war. Remember to distrust the government, avoid mass media, and fight the lies. Thank you for watching.